Awesome. Well, I wanted to say good morning to all of you. Welcome to Webster Street and the apartments that we're here today to fight for the tenants that are living here. I want to say thank you so much to Peggy and to Teresa and to Cody for joining us here today. And I want to say that we are gathering here and acknowledge the history of the traditional territory and honor the longstanding relationships of the 3 local First Nations of this land and this place in southwestern Ontario. It's always important to ensure that we acknowledge the land on which we stand and grow and live. We're here today in front of 1270 and 1280 Webster Street apartments to show our support against what these tenants are now going through. Weeks ago, these folks were horrified to learn that their apartment buildings were being sold to a corporate profiteering landlord, and they've been forced out of their homes. Many have contacted my office looking for help. They, like so many others, have been rent-evicted by a Toronto-based corporate landlord who issued them eviction notices so they could renovate them and then jack up the rent. And many of these residents are seniors. They're living on a fixed income. In London, 89% of rental homes are owned by corporate landlords, and the price for a 1-bedroom apartment has increased by almost 28% this year alone. Everyone deserves a safe, affordable, and good place to call their home. And I believe that housing is a human right. My constituents and all Canadians need a government that doesn't just say this, but follows through and backs up those beliefs with action. We've certainly seen the toll that inaction on the provision of affordable housing has taken on people. Londoners need a government that will put them first and that will create affordable housing stock and protect the existing stock against this type of rent-eviction. So that's why I am so happy to have my leader here with us today. He has come to share the NDP's vision of how to protect my constituents. People like those who have joined us today from Webster Street Apartments need a government that will put people ahead of corporate profiteering. So please help me welcome the leader of Canada's NDP, Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. As Lindsay mentioned, we're here in front of 2 buildings. In these buildings, there are seniors that live there. You can see some of the seniors across the street. There's single parents, there's families, there's people that work hard every day. There are seniors that live on fixed incomes. These are people that have done everything right, and they just want to have a roof over their head, put food on the table. Now, these seniors, these single moms, these hardworking people woke up one day to letters saying that they are at risk of being evicted. Now, the feeling that you have when you're not sure where you live is one of the scariest things that someone has to deal with. To not know if you're going to have a roof over your head is so scary. It fills people with so much stress, and these people behind me are living there right now. All because a corporation based in Toronto has purchased these buildings with the sole purpose of evicting, renovating, and jacking up the rents to make more profit. This is an example of profit going ahead of people. I just saw a sign. The sign said, "Would you evict your own grandmother?" That's what's happening here. Grandmothers are being evicted. People are losing their homes. And in a time when the bills are rising, the cost of everything is going up, the fear that these folks are living with right now, not knowing if they're going to be able to find a place, it is disgraceful. We've got people here that don't know if they're going to be able to find another home because the rents that they were paying here were affordable and about $900 a month. Now, the average rent in London right now is there, you can't find anything for less than $1,700. It's almost double what they're paying. How is a senior living on a fixed income going to have to come up with double what they were paying before, given how expensive groceries are? So what we're calling for is we know that this crisis that we're going through has been made worse by consecutive conservative and liberal governments. And right now, under Prime Minister Trudeau, things have gotten worse. Since he's taken office, the housing crisis has gotten worse, and he's doing nothing to help these folks behind me. And Pierre Poilievre, he doesn't have the courage to take on the corporate landlords, the for-profit corporate landlords that are doing exactly this, jacking up rents, rent-evicting people. He's not going to do anything about that. So these folks are depending on New Democrats. And we're saying, let's put an end to this. This shouldn't be happening. Let's put a moratorium on any purchase of these type of rental buildings by for-profit corporations. Let's put an end to that. Let's stop that from happening, period. That's what we would do, put a moratorium on it. In addition, we'd set up an acquisition fund. That's to allow for buildings like this to be purchased by municipalities or not-for-profit organizations, local community organizations committed to keeping rents low or even lowering them further. That's what we need to see happen. We need to protect affordable rental in our country. We need to stop corporate landlords from jacking up rents and evicting people. We need to stand up for people, and that's what New Democrats are committed to doing. I want to thank my colleagues at the provincial level that are here as well. Provincial and federal New Democrats are always committed to fighting for people and standing up for people, and that's what we're doing today. I want you to know we've got your back.
Okay, thank you very much, Jagmeet. So we'll take questions on site first, followed by Zoom, and there's a microphone just here for any journalists who are joining us. So we'll just ask you to line up there if any journalists on site here have any questions. We'll just give it a quick moment. If you could just introduce yourself and the outlet you're with, and it's one question and one follow-up.
Hi, it's Randy Richmond from the Free Press calling. I'm here for a change. So is this just an idea? These are my questions. Is this just an idea, or is there legislation proposing? And how far will you push the Liberal government to enact this? Would you call the vote on this?
Yeah, this is legislation we're proposing. We're proposing a two-part approach. One, just acknowledge these are people that are losing their homes. What a scary feeling. If you've ever had a situation in your life when you don't know if you're gonna be able to keep your home, that is one of the scariest things for someone to deal with. It is heartbreaking to see seniors that have lived here. I spoke with one senior who's lived here for 20 years. Say, where am I going to go now? I've lived here for 20 years. It's heartbreaking that these seniors who should be living with dignity and respect are worried about where they're going to find their next home. So what we're proposing is this is what we would do to tackle this issue. We would put an end to this ever happening ever again. This should never happen. No corporation should be able to purchase up affordable rental units and then kick out the residents. We want to put a moratorium. So that would be done through legislation. That's what we're proposing. In addition, the acquisition fund is something that the BC NDP has actually put in place. We want to do that at the federal level. So that would set up a fund so that these type of buildings could actually be kept in the hands of community organizations that want to keep the prices low, whether that's a not-for-profit housing organization, a local community group, or a municipality that wants to keep rents affordable. That's what we want to see happen.
But how far down the political road are you willing to go? How far will you push the Liberals? Will this become an issue that you would dismantle the government for?
Yeah, this is something that we believe it has to happen right away. So we're going to be using all the tools that we have to push this forward in Parliament, to push the government to move forward on this. We've used our power to deliver things like dental care. We want to use our power now to focus on housing. We know that for a lot of people, they're so worried about the cost of rent. They're so worried about whether or not they can keep a roof over their head. We want to make sure that we're there for those folks.
Okay, are there any other questions on site? Oh, yeah. We've got another one. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Brian Bicknell from CTV News here in London. I'm just wondering, maybe you could help explain this, but I thought this was under a provincial jurisdiction, this sort of thing. How do you do it at the federal level? And if you do it, do you need to get the province and in this case, the municipality on board in some way? How do you make that happen?
What we're proposing is using federal tools, federal laws to end the practice of for-profit companies or for-profit corporations purchasing units like this. We want to put an end to that, and we can use federal rules to do that. That does not require any provincial or municipal legislation. We can do it at the federal level. Of course, to tackle the problems of making sure people can find housing, find homes, that's going to mean working with provinces and working with municipalities. But what we're proposing today is a path to help these folks behind me that are right now living with the fear that they're going to lose their homes. To give them some immediate relief, what we're proposing is a moratorium on this practice ever happening again. This should not be happening. These folks should not be living in this fear or worry. And families like them that are thinking, well, if it happened here, what if it happens in our home? What if it happens in our apartment? We want to put an end to that. And that's something we can do at the federal level with legislation that puts a ban or a moratorium on the purchase of these type of buildings by for-profit companies.
Okay, did you have a follow-up question on site? Okay. Seeing no other questions on site from media, we'll turn to Zoom. So Eric, go ahead.
Yes, the first question is to Mr. Boudjikanian from the CBC. So for a main question and a follow-up.
Thanks very much. Hi, Mr. Singh. I wanted to ask you about the letter you have sent requesting to know whether you can talk about any of the classified documents you have agreed to read regarding the report by Mr. Johnston. Have you received any response to that request? And what is your intent once you read the classified docs? Will you then pronounce yourself on whether or not you will keep supporting the government?
So what we're going to do is, first of all, let's take a step back. We've got a serious problem. And these are serious allegations of interference in our electoral system. And we've got two different approaches we've seen so far. We've seen the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, ignore it, not take it seriously, act like this is not a big deal. And then we got Pierre Poilievre, for whom it is a game. This is a game for him because he's not willing to look at actually the evidence. He's not willing to receive the top secret clearance and hear the evidence. He didn't even meet with the special rapporteur to raise any of his concerns. I met with the special rapporteur. I will be receiving the top secret clearance and reviewing the evidence. And I put forward a letter to make sure it was abundantly clear that I will follow all the rules around any threats to national security. I won't compromise that information, but I will make sure that my opinion is made clear. After reviewing that evidence, I want to be able to express my opinion, whether a public inquiry is still necessary, express my opinion whether or not Mr. Johnston's findings were appropriate or not. And so I want to make it expressly clear in writing, we want to see a response that I will be able to do the same thing that Mr. Johnston did, which is to provide his opinion. I want to be able to provide my opinion. I'll review the information and take this matter seriously and then provide solutions. Unlike Mr. Poilievre, who thinks this is just a game, attacks without any sort of solution, unwilling to meet with people that are making decisions, unwilling to even look at the evidence. Unlike Mr. Trudeau, who's ignoring how serious this is. I'm taking it seriously. I'll be looking at the evidence and I'll be making my recommendations.
So for a follow-up.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering, what do you think of Canada re-establishing diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia?
I think that there's been some serious and grievous human rights
it's
violations when it comes to Saudi Arabia. Their human rights track record is abysmal. We've called for an end to the sale of arms to countries like that abuse and violate human rights. That's something that Mr. Trudeau didn't agree with. He continued to sell arms to a country with such a horrible track record of abusing citizens, of violating human rights, and I think that's wrong. In terms of having communications, we need to have open dialogue with all countries. I believe in open communication, but to send a clear message that we are condemning the violations that are going on, I think we need to continue down that path to make sure that our criticism and our condemnation of their horrible track record needs to be clear, needs to be maintained.
So we'll have a question from Mickey from Canadian Press.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I guess
Of course.
other than the letter, what are the next steps that you are willing to take at this point in regards to forcing pressure on Trudeau and his government to have a public inquiry?
Well, from the beginning, we've said that the only way forward to restore confidence in our electoral system is a public inquiry. We forced a vote on this matter in Parliament. We're going to keep up the pressure. I disagree strongly with Mr. Johnston's finding that a public inquiry is not necessary. It is necessary. Given the report, that does not restore confidence in Canadians when it comes to the electoral system. And for me, the reason why this is so important is I want people to vote. I want people to believe in our electoral system. I want people to believe in the institutions. But when there are serious allegations that go unanswered and serious questions that remain unanswered, and the threats to our democracy are not being taken seriously, that further erodes public confidence in our democracy. We've already seen an apathy around voting. Less and less people are voting. I want to turn that around. I want people to believe that their vote matters. And that's why I think this is such an important question. People should know that their vote matters, that any sort of allegation of foreign interference is taken seriously, and that we put in place clear measures to safeguard our democracy. So we'll be using the tools that we have to continue to put pressure on this government. I disagree with Mr. Trudeau. I disagree with Mr. Johnston. We need a public inquiry, and we're going to continue to push for one.
And
So
then,
for a follow-up, yep.
yeah, for my follow-up, the Conservatives are now concerned that Trudeau is going to prorogue Parliament as a way to avoid further scrutiny on foreign interference. I guess, do you share in those concerns? Is this a concern you're worried about at all?
I've not heard anything that would suggest that that would happen. But I do want to point out the contrast between the Conservatives and myself. And for Mr. Poilievre, this is a game to him. He's not taking this matter seriously. You know, someone who thinks that this is a serious matter wouldn't ignore the evidence and say, I'm not going to look at the evidence, refuse special top secret clearance to receive evidence of what's going on. If you're serious about safeguarding democracy and you're a leader of an opposition party, I think the right thing to do is to look at the evidence, to understand how serious it is. If it's something that you take seriously, I don't think Mr. Poilievre does. If Mr. Poilievre really had concerns about the special rapporteur, he would have met with them. He refused to meet with them. I had the courage to meet with him directly and say, I think there should be a public inquiry, and I'm coming out clearly disagreeing with his opinion not to have a public inquiry. There's a difference of character here. Mr. Trudeau thinks this is not a problem, ignores it. Mr. Poilievre thinks it's a game. I think this is serious. I'm taking it seriously, and my actions show that.
So if there's no more questions, we will end the press conference here. So thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I want to thank the provincial NDP that's here. Thank my colleague, thank Lindsay. Thanks to all the people that are here today. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.